Smartphones have become an inseparable part of modern culture, permeating every aspect of daily life, including education. Nearly 84% of high schools across the United States have implemented written policies to manage their use. And these policies often reflect a dual reality where smartphones offer students undeniable benefits. They also pose significant challenges. On one hand, smartphones can facilitate communication, enhance learning experiences, and ensure safety in emergencies. On the other hand, they introduce risks like distractions, cheating, privacy violations, particularly with the rise of camera phones capable of capturing and sharing sensitive images. This duality underscores the importance of crafting thoughtful policies that balance the educational potential of smartphones with the need to mitigate their misuse. In this video, we will explore the impact of smartphones in schools by addressing key questions. Are smartphones inherently problematic, or does the issue lie in how they are used? How do policies and practices shape their role in the classroom? By examining both the benefits and drawbacks of smartphone use, as well as insights from educators and administrators, we will aim to uncover strategies for fostering a positive and productive relationship with this ubiquitous technology. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is David and today we are going to attempt to answer the seemingly age-old question, do cell phones belong in schools? I do want to make a note before we get started that this is not just a conversation about the technology. It's more about the balance that we need to strike in order to utilize this technology for learning, maintaining some set of discipline amongst classrooms where cell phones are used, and finally, and arguably most importantly, making sure that the use of cell phones in classrooms does not negatively affect the mental health of students. Let's break it down. Cell phones, or mobile devices, have become a standard part of our daily lives. Nearly 46% of Canadian grade 11 students own a cell phone, and that number is likely higher today. It's no surprise that smartphones are now a common sight in classrooms across the country and around the world. But their presence comes with a set of challenges, from texting during lessons to taking pictures of exams to videoing students without consent. The issues are numerous. I'd like to take a look at this graphic with you because this will really set the tone for the rest of our conversation here today. A study was conducted where administrators were surveyed on their schools and/or their district's policies on cell phone usage in schools. Now this graphic shows the responses to these information questions. So if we start at the very beginning, number 1 says, does your school or district have a written policy regarding cell phones? 84% said yes and 16% said no. The strong majority of schools have policies, where a handful do not. And you could probably picture a school where no policy is actually needed. There's not that many of them, but they do exist. Number 4 says, does your school allow students to leave cell phones on silent mode? And 47% said yes and 53% said no. And this starts to open up the conversation here by asking the question, what is the school attempting to mitigate with this policy? Because if a school is okay with students having phones in their pockets as long as they're on silent mode, the distraction of the noise of the notification sounds would be the chief complaint. But as we're going to look at, the noise from the cell phones might be the most inconsequential part of their use in a school. In the high school that I attended, there was a bucket that sat at the front of the classroom, and you would walk in, put your phone in the little bucket on silent mode, and at the end of the class, you would just come and take your phone out of the bucket. Now, I was in high school around 2013, and one of the new settings on the iPhone at that time is that the flash for your camera could also go off at the same time that you would get a notification. So while there might not have been a sound that was emitting through the cell phone, at random intervals, the bucket would be flashing from all of the different phones, emitting that strobe light effect when a notification happened. So it's interesting to see that about half of these schools regulate cell phones where it's just they can't be a distraction, but there usually is something else. But if you're permitting cell phone use and you outlaw, for lack of a better word, the sound, there's always that next step of distraction in my experience. The last response that I need to bring to your attention is number 6. Now number 6 says, do you believe that teachers who utilize cell phones use them for only school-related reasons? 6% said yes. 94% of administrators who were surveyed said that they know or are aware that 94% of their teachers are using cell phones for unrelated business during work time. Does it clarify during work time? It doesn't specifically say that it's during work time, so that seems a little bit vague to me, because if you're on a lunch break as a teacher, you're gonna be on your phone. If you have 5 minutes before the students come in the morning, you're probably gonna be on your phone. This is such an interesting conversation. Is it data security? Is it distraction and lost time? There's so many ways that things can go wrong in the context of cell phone use at school by both students and teachers. It always gives me pause when I see something trying to be controlled by any group of people without also simultaneously trying to educate others and work to more deeply understand what that thing does. And in this context, that thing being a cell phone. There's a lot of things that the average person, the average teacher, the majority of students and children don't understand about the ways that our cell phones work. I always like to try and follow the trail to the end and really try and figure out why these things have such a presence in our lives and why things seem so ubiquitous and that everything is connected. There are reasons. We're not going to talk about those here, but there are reasons. So, Chapter 1. Introduction to the debate. The rise of smartphones in schools. The lisp feels extra bad today. In today's digital age, smartphones have become ubiquitous, offering unprecedented access to information and tools. However, their role in schools is highly contested. On one hand, smartphones are powerful learning devices capable of assisting students with tasks like note-taking, researching, or collaborating, and on the other hand, they are often seen as distractions that undermine learning and disrupt classroom environments. Educational technology is increasingly seen as integral to a quality education. As schools move towards more digital integration, the bring your own device, or BYOD model, has become popular, promoting the use of more personal devices in educational settings. This model aims to bridge the digital divide and provide students with easy access to learning tools. An example of this is the pilot program conducted in a district in New York, where schools provided Wi-Fi access for students who brought in their smartphones, leading to a marked improvement in student engagement and collaboration. Despite this potential, many schools have banned smartphones due to concerns about distractions and classroom management issues. These concerns are not unfounded, as research has shown that mobile phones can create classroom disruptions. However, as we have and will continue to discuss, it's not just the technology, but it's how that technology is used and who is using it. For example, a case study in California schools found that schools who allowed smartphones for educational purposes under structured guidelines experienced less classroom disruption and improved student focus. Teachers were trained to use apps to track student progress, leading to more efficient uses of their time in class. Which is always the goal, in my opinion, in education. How are we going to get more bang for our buck? How are we going to work smarter, not harder? How can we do less and do more at the same time? How delightfully paradoxical, like everything in this video series. Anyhow, Chapter 2, the digital native and digital immigrant divide, a generational perspective. A central issue in the smartphone debate is the generational divide between digital natives and digital immigrants. The terms were coined in 2001, and they describe the difference between those born after 1980, which would be the digital natives who grew up surrounded by technology, and those born before 1980, digital immigrants who had to adapt later in life. Digital natives are more adept at using technology and are thus more likely to embrace its use in educational contexts. However, research has shown that the divide is not as clear-cut. A study by O'Bannon and Thomas revealed that teachers under 50, while more likely to embrace smartphones in the classroom, still showed a significant generational gap in perceptions and usage when compared to their colleagues over 50. Teachers over 50 were less likely to own smartphones and were less supportive of using mobile phones in the classroom. They also perceived more barriers, finding mobile phone use in the classroom more problematic. In one case study conducted in a middle school in Texas, teachers who were over 50 expressed reluctance towards using smartphones, citing difficulty in managing digital distractions and the overwhelming nature of integrating technology into their already busy schedules. In contrast, younger teachers were more eager to incorporate mobile technology into their classrooms, suggesting that generational differences in comfort with technology can create disparities in the learning experience. And there is something to note here too about this generation of teachers who are currently over 50 is that a lot of them, in my experience, do have bandwagon fatigue. These teachers are exhausted from jumping on bandwagon after bandwagon for the new next right best thing. I can't imagine throughout the career of somebody who has been teaching for 30 plus years how many brand new and revolutionary new technologies or programs or systems or structures have come and gone their classrooms. The majority of them probably didn't work, but they were pushed onto these teachers for reasons of which we will not be discussing in this video, but it's not always done with the intention of what is best for those teachers, and by consequence, what is best for their students. So there are numerous reasons as to why a teacher over 50 may not be excited or as eager to use technology in the classroom compared to their younger colleagues. But there are many outliers as well. I have met and known teachers who were my age who were not interested in integrating that new technology, and there are older generation teachers who are really jazzed to learn new things because they're still happy in their job. While this digital native, digital immigrant concept does hold weight, it can't serve as a blanket statement. Let's get into Chapter 3, Perceptions of Mobile Phones, Benefits and Barriers. When it comes to integrating smartphones into the classroom, teachers' perceptions play a crucial role. Support for mobile phones often depends on how teachers perceive the benefits and challenges of using the devices in their practice. Younger teachers tend to see the advantages of this technology more clearly, embracing its potential for enhancing engagement and providing real-time access to resources. On the other hand, older teachers may be more cautious and concerned about the disruptions that smartphones could cause during lessons. For example, teachers in a North Carolina district participated in a year-long study where smartphones were used to access study guides, communicate with students about assignments, and conduct online lessons. The results were encouraging, with students reporting that they felt more engaged and less stressed about assignments. However, teachers who were over 50 expressed concerns about the increase in classroom distractions and the lack of adequate training to fully integrate technology. And that is the key right there. It is an amazing, beautiful, world-changing technology, but if the education is not there on how to use it more effectively, it may, or most probably, would start to detract from the learning done by the students. For instance, one teacher in a study noted that while smartphones help students access a variety of resources, it was difficult to manage when students use them for non-educational purposes like texting friends or browsing social media. These concerns were less pronounced amongst younger teachers who felt more comfortable using apps to monitor and guide student activity during lessons. And that makes sense because the notifications that come up and where you can find them and how you can show the history of what somebody's been doing on a device are all very secondary skills when it comes to navigating something like an iPhone. And it stands to reason that those younger teachers or digital natives would be more comfortable being able to use this kind of technology for classroom discipline or classroom management. And for digital immigrants, if they come to this task of learning how to use an app in a classroom, they are still going to be on that stage of how to use the educational material and how to navigate those things before they can even begin to be able to find out the history of what apps somebody has been in any given iPhone session. So there's different layers here of what you have to be comfortable with and good at in order to facilitate appropriate and positive learning with cell phones in a classroom. Chapter 4, Legal and Ethical Considerations when it comes to policy and privacy. Now, a simple solution that many schools have turned to is banning smartphones outright. But here's the thing, banning smartphones is not the way. And if you disagree with me, that's okay. Stick with me as we talk through this next chapter. In 2007, the New York City Department of Education implemented a ban on cell phones in schools, which was upheld by the courts. The case, Price versus NYC Board of Education, highlighted how cell phones disrupt learning. And they cited things like cell phones ringing during class, students texting under their desks, or taking photos of tests. All things of which I participated in as a student with a cell phone, so it's not far-fetched. But this New York case also acknowledged the flip side, that students may need cell phones for safety. While the court ruled the ban constitutional, they also pointed out that schools schools should provide alternatives for parents and students to maintain communication. And this resonates with the emotional side of things. Parents want peace of mind that they can reach their kids in case of an emergency. It is a fact that many schools across our country and world have been sites of tragic incidents in the past. Understandably, parents argue that having access to a phone is not just about convenience, it's also about safety. Section 7 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms guarantees security of the person, which includes protection from psychological harm. And if schools completely ban smartphones, could that harm students' mental health, especially in emergency situations? If parents or students feel that a phone ban takes away their ability to stay connected during a crisis, that could be a violation of their rights. While Canadian courts haven't set a precedent for banning phones in schools yet, the Price case in New York shows that courts tend to uphold the right to schools to restrict phones if it's for a legitimate reason like maintaining discipline, but there's still room for compromise. This raises the big question: how do we maintain the delicate and seemingly invisible line between keeping students happy, safe, and healthy, and learning at schools, and respecting their rights? In Canada, similar to the US, the laws around this are quite murky, especially when it comes to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. While the educational benefits of smartphones are undeniable, there are also significant legal and ethical considerations that need to be addressed. Teachers and administrators must navigate issues of student privacy, data security, and equitable access to technology. These concerns are particularly important in the context of mobile phone use, as phones can easily be used to record and share sensitive content, including private student information or footage of classroom activities. One significant example comes from a district in Florida, where a high school student used their smartphone to record a teacher's private conversation with a student. The incident resulted in a school-wide review of smartphone policies to protect both students and teacher privacy. The school adopted a policy that allowed for smartphones to be used in class, but prohibited their use for recording private conversations or activities without prior consent. This case underscores the need for clear guidelines and policies that balance the benefit of smartphones with privacy and ethical concerns. School policies around smartphone use must therefore balance the need for technological integration with the protection of student rights. The research by Kiedrowski emphasizes the importance of creating clear, consistent policies that govern the use of smartphones in schools. Rather than an outright ban, which may seem like the easiest solution, schools are encouraged to develop policies that leverage the educational potential of smartphones while addressing the potential risks to privacy and emotional well-being. In another case, a school district integrated a pilot program where smartphones were used for educational purposes under strict conditions. Students were required to sign an agreement that they would use their phones only for educational purposes, and teachers were trained to monitor cell phone use closely. This policy helped the district avoid potential issues with distractions and privacy concerns while still reaping the educational benefits of mobile phones. Chapter 5. Moving forward, how do we find the balance? The key to this issue is balance. Instead of enforcing a blanket ban, schools can create policies that prioritize both safety and learning. They could provide lockers for phones or allow phone use only for research and educational apps in the classroom. And we also need to address the mental health aspect. If students feel disconnected from their parents or their peers in emergencies, that's something schools need to consider. Finding a system that works is key, and that may look different for every school. While the digital native immigrant divide plays a role in teachers' perceptions of mobile phones, it is clear that factors like training, policy, and support structures are also crucial in determining how well smartphones can be integrated into the classroom. In conclusion, the use of smartphones in schools is a complex issue that goes beyond simply banning or embracing them. The perceptions of teachers, shaped by their age, experience, and training, play a critical role in how mobile phones are integrated into educational practice. By understanding these generational perspectives and addressing their barriers to smartphone use, schools can work towards creating a more inclusive, integrative, and effective learning environment for students and teachers alike. The truth is, Smartphones aren't going anywhere, they're here to stay. The real question is how we, as educators, students, and policymakers, can use them in ways that benefit students while respecting their rights and emotional well-being. What do you think? Could smartphones be banned entirely, or should we find a way to incorporate them into school culture? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think about this. Personally, I do tend to think that it's not about the phones themselves that are the issue, but rather how we as a society choose to regulate them. If we manage the distractions and the emotional aspect, we might unlock more benefits than we expect. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.